Hey YouTube, this is our review of Howl-O-Scream 2016, house by house, and we're going to try to mention as much as we can about the scare zones, but they're kind of not so well defined, so we'll do our best.
Yeah.
So we're going by the order that it is on this side of the map. This side of the guide that has the descriptions. The other side of the guide is a different order. We're going to go on this side because I'm going to try to read the descriptions in the top of the house, and then we're going to tell you what we think of it. So, starting off with one of the two new houses, it's called Motel Hell. The sign looks like an old Holiday Inn sign, kind of. It says Motel Shelburne, but only Hell is lit up, so it's called Motel Hell. This is the paranormal presence of a deserted motel's former owners still lurks on the untouched property. Guests who dare to enter will find themselves face to face with their worst nightmares. Ooh.
You enter from the queue to the entrance of the motel. You see an old car and a victim. You see, the outside. You see the ice machine. The basic theme is an old motel from the 60s or 70s. I believe it's supposed to be, we are in modern day, but we're looking at a motel that hasn't been touched because of all the deaths and ghosts and spooky goings on.
In the line queue, it says that any attempts to demolish the motel has resulted in the death of all the people involved.
It's actually modern day. The motel is kind of stuck where it was, old music. You go through every single area that I guess would be at a motel. The hallways, with access to the rooms. You go through some of the rooms and see what's happened in there. There's a room that's almost upside down where everything's kind of flipped over. You go through a laundromat. You go through the pool area.
There's a lot of sand in places too.
Yeah.
And then you go to one room where the guest is not very happy that you're there, and she yells at you, "Get out of her room!" Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, sorry."
It might be kind of like an Easter egg, but like in one of the rooms looked like a creature that was like the Silence from Doctor Who.
Yeah. There is a outdoor area. It's inside the house, but it's meant to look like it's outside. Mm-hmm. And there's a pool area where someone is floating dead in the pool. There's a dead body in the pool. And there's a lighting effect that makes it look like water. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. So you actually look like you're outside in a pool area in the moonlight. And yeah, I'm with him. It's a really...
And there's a really interesting remix of the old Mr. Sandman song. Mm-hmm. It's a little hip-hop, electronic bit to it, but only slightly remixed. It's pretty much the original song.
Yeah.
I guess Enter Sandman from Metallica would have been just been too expensive.
And I also think it fits with the era of the motel. I like the look of the motel. You basically go through every area that a guest would have access to in a motel, and it's pretty great.
Next is the Black Spot.
Beware of the Black Spot!
Sawtooth Sales, an infamous pirate, has marked you for death. He has you right where he wants you in his murderous hideaway, the Black Spot. There is an animatronic in the line queue, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things he says, "Look for the Black Spot." It's kind of an outside area, cool outside area with some big props. And then you walk into the house itself, which the whole thing looks like a ship, and it's well detailed as they usually are. There's a lot of screaming throughout the house. That's understandable, but after a while it gets a little too much for me.
You see ship areas, netting areas, and like some victims caught up in the net. A room with treasure. You appear to go through like a castle, like the pirate's hideout. It's really cool to see a pirate-themed house. You would basically go through the ship. Sometimes you see nautically themed stuff like the Forsaken back in Halloween Horror Nights 21. You're on an island, so you will see a castle. You'll see the captain's crew running around, victims as well.
Which you're one of. It's kind of a cool house. It made me wonder if it was a house because it looked like a scare zone at first, which is interesting. Good use of the space.
The black spot that is mentioned, you kind of see it in the picture. They're also on the walls and on the floors. And I do believe there's one of the curtain doorways where the black spot is on that. I believe if you touch the black spot, you become cursed. It gets on you, and that's how the pirates know to kill you.
It's based on an old lore. The next one is a Zombie Containment Unit 15, Moving Targets. Armed with only a ZED, zombie eradication device, it's up to you to hold off the undead mob in this interactive zombie hunting experience. This is, of course, one of their returning houses.
This is, by the way, the busiest house in the park if you ever go. But thankfully, if you see the lines a lot, you can come back later to have died down.
At least it worked for us. But why send the citizens in to go through and only try to survive when they're trying to contain the zombies? That's what I got confused about. So your goal is just to escape, so why go in at all?
Well, my theory is you're volunteering to help them. It's a containment unit, so the basic concept, it's been 3 years since a zombie outbreak has happened. Things are pretty much under control. There's containment units all over the country and the world where zombies are kept, and they're now called zombie Americans. But like if they break out, they're zombies, you can't just say, hey, no, stop, you gotta go back. They don't know how to listen. So you're helping with your ZED to zap them, and my theory is that once they're zapped, the professionals come in and can take the zombie without worry of being bitten and put them back. Now, I do like the concept that you're given a laser gun and all the zombies wear this area where you're supposed to shoot, and when it lights up, they're stunned. And I also believe that, yes, your gun can be affected because toward the end, my gun kept flashing red and I wasn't able to fire. I was stunned. So it's either the zombie gets too close to you and somehow that affects it, or it was a big room where we go around and maybe others behind me where I end up shooting my gun on accident. Through that room, you do hear like shots being ricocheted, so maybe that's what's going on. It's actually a pretty neat concept that it's interactive, where instead of trying to dodge, whatever is trying to attack you, you actually fighting back. Even though it's a zombie themed, it's actually kind of fresh because, it's interactive.
It's basically a standard light that I've seen many times before with LEDs, and it's been modified to work with this gun, probably an infrared of some sort, to light up when you point it and fire at it, which is, pretty cool concept, but like at least paint it to look different than just, oh, look, I just bought that at Walmart. Not a big deal, but they're putting a lot of effort into it, like just, paint it something different color. But the next one, really cool, realistic mine entrance. And yes, I've been in a coal mine once. Unearthed. During maintenance at the park, an excavation crew uncovered centuries-old house buried deep beneath the ground. Upon entering the house, a vengeful demon seeking revenge is unearthed. I assume this means that it was a house that was under the park centuries before the park was built.
It's a really cool concept where you've got a house and now it's exposed. When you're going through the queue, you see Aurora Construction Company has like a little setup, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, okay, as you're going further down the queue, things went really wrong here and they just had to kind of get out of there. And something that is kind of rare is if you know where to look when you're going through the queue, you can look down and see the end of the house. A lot of these houses end up outside. That's a really good use of space, but it's also kind of cool to see what you're about to get into. There's a lot of cool things to see in here. I was sort of looking forward to this house, but then I was really surprised. There's a room with a bunch of skeletons, and all these skeleton animals are moving around like they're still alive.
But there's a dog or a wolf howling in the room, which is a little strange, being that it is underground. Then they usually howl to the moon.
Yeah.
You can't see the moon when you're underground.
Yeah. But what you're doing is you're going through this old house, and you're seeing what's there. There's minions that are still there, still alive.
Chasing bananas.
Now, for you Howl-O-Scream fans who know the lore better than us, is there something going on with eye removal? Because the icon, or I think his name is Carver, has an eyeball in his hand at the entrance. In Motel Hell, I believe the first victim you see is missing his eyes. And then you go through a room with all these masks and faces on the wall, and you hear, hey, can we have your eyes? We need your eyes. Come on, give us your eyes.
No, where we're going, we don't need eyes.
Yeah. So, and then on Earth, there's two separate occasions where a guy says, they took my eyes, I need yours. And then later in the house, there's a lady who says, I need your eyes to eat. I don't have mine anymore. So like, That might be Howl-O-Scream lore, or maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know.
Next on the list is the Deathwater Bayou. Deep in the bayou, the Voodoo Queen transforms wanderers, which would be you, into her evil minions, not as in the yellow ones. Those who enter must escape her dark magic before falling victim to her spell. There's a mechanical chair in the beginning that you get a little too close to, so in the Cinema Sims tradition, mechanical chair is mechanical.
But it is a concept that Halloween Horror Nights can't really do. But it's the Voodoo Queen, and her chair goes up and down to look like she's levitating. Now, if you look at it, yeah, you can see where the lift is, and you see it's black. They might have tucked it away a little bit better for more effect, but it's still cool to see.
Now, Halloween Horror Nights would probably be too loud in the house to hear it because there is a compressor that goes on through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, and you'd think you would hear that, but it's so loud you don't hear it. Universal Studios would probably use a 3D effect so you wouldn't see the rest of it and paint it really neon, but it wouldn't work for this theme.
Yeah. Louisiana voodoo bayou stuff going on. It's actually a really cool concept. Voodoo has been done before in Halloween events in the past, not just Halloween Horror Nights. I like their take on it. You see different aspects of voodoo. You see different areas. It's pretty cool. There's a funeral procession, which is a jazz band. And the coffin is actually being bared over to the grave, and you walk under it.
Limbo style.
I don't know if that's part of voodoo lore, where if you walk under a coffin, you're cursed or somehow, but it's still kind of cool. The jazz band is playing all distorted and wacky and haphazard, so that was a neat highlight room for me.
And throughout the whole house, there's lots and lots and lots of screaming to the point you're like, okay, enough of the screaming. I get it's scary, but please, enough.
I believe at the end, you're in a city location with a bunch of graffiti on the walls.
Yeah,
I believe Baron Samedi, and I hope I'm saying that name right, Baron Samedi is there. At least that's what I think it's supposed to be. And if you've even checked out Voodoo even mildly, you'll see his name. That's who I believe that's supposed to be.
The pumpkin room is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And the voodoo mask, Ooga Booga. For those who haven't played Crash Bandicoot series, that's from that. Yeah. The next one is the Circus of Superstitions, The Last Laugh. You've tried to avoid black cats and sidewalk cracks, but the bad luck of all your childhood superstitions has finally caught up to you with new determined fears. Or demented fears.
This is one of the houses I was really looking forward to, is this in Motel Hell, which makes me glad that they repeat houses. The basic concept is you're going into a circus, or more like a carnival, where you're gonna be forced to go through these superstitious things and see if you come out all right.
Well, I saw there was a room full of rocking chairs, and I was like, okay, why would there be a room full of rocking chairs? Well, from what I've looked up, it is bad luck to rock an empty rocking chair. To do so will bring death to your family.
There was also another obscure one where it's a room with a bed with a bunch of hats on it, and even says, it's bad luck to leave your hat upon your bed, for if you do, you might lose your head.
I'm not sure what superstitions have to do with clowns. Plus, it's more of a carnival than a circus, I think.
Well, it's meant to be. It's a carnival where they purposely make you go through these superstitions to face your fears.
Because, if it was a circus, there's more than just circus. There's more than just clowns in a circus. Mm-hmm. So, you think they have a tiger, being that they have tigers or elephants, but I think a better name would have been carnival superstition.
Yeah. Now, another one that's actually pretty old school is there's a room with a giant camera, and it will snap a picture, and it'll actually say, oh, if we took your picture, we might take your soul. But the cool thing about this is, if you like, that actually does take your picture, and you can purchase the picture when you leave the house.
In other words, you go to the end of the house and you buy your soul back.
Yeah. And then the final room, or actually the almost final room, is a bunch of clowns. So that's part of facing your fears. The last thing you see is a giant clown face with snapping jaws, and they can actually push it out at you, which was really cool. That was my favorite part of the house.
The final one is the zombie mortuary. First, I would like to say this is all my fault.
It's all your fault.
one of the scare actors comes when you're walking by, goes over and says, "It's all your fault." And I said, "Sorry."
Yeah.
So that is led by the queen. Zombies infest this small town funeral home to satisfy their hunger with fresh flesh and brains of the mortuary mourners. So those would be you walking through.
Mm-hmm. I did say that I was a little tired of zombies, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You're going through a mortuary, so you're going to see people mourning that they're lost, and you're going to be seeing zombies, either like, the freshly dead, or zombies that have just kind of flocked here because there's plenty of food. You even go into areas that you're not supposed to be at. There are definitely mourners, people dressed in black crying, and the lady who says it's all your fault.
There's a whole unfinished room area where there's unfinished walls and insulation, but don't worry, it's not really insulation, it's probably just cotton, because if it was really insulation and it was fiberglass, you would be itching the rest of the night and would be very pissed.
Mm-hmm. It's meant to be that you're getting into like crawl spaces or between the walls and finding dead bodies, mutant rats, finding out that maybe this mortuary wasn't running the way it was supposed to be running, and that's what helped contribute to the zombies. You even go into the room where you're supposed to store the dead bodies. There's a sink full of body parts and blood. This was a pretty neat house. I think up there in my top 5. Well, there's only 7 houses, but it's up there in the houses. I really like this house.
Yeah, I think it might be 3 for me after the 2 new ones. So then there is the Fiends show, which is how my opinion is. It's kind of a copy of the Bill and Ted show in a way. A lot of similar things: the opening dance number, the closing dance number, and a theme which I feel is a little stronger this year. It's in a big eatery with a stage which is extended, and a pretty cool light show.
And a lot of impressive dancing. The guy who's the Wolfman does flips a few times during the show.
Especially the guy who's the mummy does some pretty amazing breakdancing.
Oh, yeah. So a smaller cast, but they're able to show off a little more.
Yeah.
Now, like we mentioned, this is a show that's been going on for years. A lot of characters come back again and again, so they've got their own like storyline going.
We mentioned that in another video. It's also on my channel.
So like Dr. Frankenstein and Igor seem to come back. The nurses are always around. And the basic plot is that it's time for elections, and Dr. Frankenstein has been running for years. He's the leader, and this time he's actually got some competition. So that's the basic plot of the show.
So it's pretty cool, but it's not as fresh, I believe, as Bill and Ted's show. But because it's indoors, the fog stays in place, so the lighting effects work better. So then there are all the scare zones, which kind of balance out a little bit the fact you have to walk really far to get to things. I know a few of them. One of them is the playground, which you liked. We went through it a few times.
Yeah.
There's some playground equipment. If you see it, don't try to sit on it because it's not real.
And it's going by itself.
Yeah. Ooh, spooky.
But the basic concept is twisted childhood, or murderous children, or a haunted playground. Because if you look at the logo, which is a projection, it says the playground with what looks like a child hanging from a noose. Yeah. So maybe a suicide happened there.
And you have a theory that there are 3 6s hidden in it, which may be possible. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, but you've got an evil living teddy bear, an evil living rabbit. So like stuffed animals come to life. Yeah. Kids, wearing masks with blood all over them. What seems to be a burnt doll boy holding another doll head. Yeah. And things on the ground, like the kids, have drawn like, "Where's my mommy?" and "Look what mommy did," and so things like that. Then we've got the Wasteland, which is a post-apocalyptic world where people affected by radiation and stacked up drum barrels and stuff like that.
It looks like we've gone over a 30-minute mark. So 1 second. Then near the zombie crash, the test crash zombies, is a bunch of clowns walking around, and and those are kind of fun. I got
Yeah.
I got them on a camera, and just after I hit stop on the recording, he did something cool.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Right in my face. I'm like, jeez.
But yeah, one of them has a bullhorn.
Which is usually loud, but
It's very quiet because you're meant to go in and be like, what are you saying? And he goes, and the horn is loud. So that's where he tricks you. Oh man!
And that's what I missed when he did the horn. I unfortunately did miss it on video.
Yeah.
And then there is the zone, which reminds me a lot of Psychotherapy Unleashed, which is a bus of inmates from the insane asylum crash, and everyone escapes, and they're also cannibals.
But this is one of the heavy zones where like they really talk to you. They're all really good at improv and making jokes. Like one of the ladies said, "Oh well, we all got out when we crashed here, but we like it here. The food comes to us."
Yeah.
And there's another dude who will actually take what you're saying and like be all confused about it, like. Universal. What's a universal?
Yeah.
Like he actually said that. Like I'm quoting because like somebody said in the park. Oh,
this is nothing like Universal.
And he's like, Universal. What's a universal? And so that's a really fun zone.
Yeah. And then there's a few others that I can't.
Well, there's
remember
the
very clearly.
werewolf zone.
Yeah.
We didn't catch the name of that, but it's a very dark zone. And you're walking through and you're like, oh, well, there's nothing going on in here. Yeah. So you put your guard
Not
down.
clap, but it's a loud sound.
Yeah, it's a very loud clacking noise, and you're like, whoa. And then you realize there's people hiding in the bushes in camouflage. I believe the basic concept of the zone is there's werewolves and there's the hunters. I think the hunters are the camouflage in the bushes. But yeah, and then there's werewolves running around who Yeah.
So overall, I thought it would be kind of weak compared to Halloween Horror Nights. I like Halloween Horror Nights more for certain things, but it is still a very, very close second. It's a matter of opinion. So if you can afford to, if you have the means to go to both, I'd say go to both. We're going to try that next year. I feel like you can go through this event in one day, where you might want to take more than one day for Halloween Horror Nights to really appreciate it, or at least for the crowds. But that's our thoughts on that. And it's about an hour and a half between the two events. So if you are coming for only a couple days and every minute counts, it would be kind of tricky. But if you're in Florida, or you don't mind coming back, or you can stay long enough to go to both.
Yeah.
So that's... Is there anything else?
I think that's all.
All right. Well, thank you for watching the whole video. If you like this video, please comment, please like it, please share it on social media, and stay a little ad over there. If you want to click on it, that'd be great. So thanks for watching.